One of the best things Andor did was make the Empire scary again. The main villains of Star Wars have felt a little uneven, probably since around Return of the Jedi. A New Hope introduced us to the Empire by showing us the size and scope of their reach, by showing stormtroopers steamrolling rebel forces. The Empire Strikes Back continued with the fear because the rebellion is defeated in the first half of the movie and then set on the run for the rest of the runtime. And of course, the Death Star is the ultimate and final symbol of their terror, the ability to destroy any planet that dares oppose them. And then in Return of the Jedi, they're beaten by the Ewoks. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I totally understand what George Lucas wanted to say with the so-called primitive fighters defeating the technologically advanced tyrants, but I also think that was kind of the start of the fandom taking the Empire less seriously, and other stories would go on to show Imperials, and especially stormtroopers, to be bumbling fools easily outwitted. Again, that's not necessarily bad, especially when it's happening in the context of something like Star Wars Rebels. It's a show for kids. But over the years, the Empire lost its more terrifying reputation and traded it for something far less scary. Even The Mandalorian has made multiple jokes about how stormtroopers can't hit anything. Then Andor came along and hit the reset button on all of that. I'm not saying it invalidated what came before, it's just a different show made for an older audience. It is good to remind people that the Empire and the people that follow them aren't always bumbling idiots. Some of them certainly are, but you don't get to take over an entire galaxy by being completely incompetent. The fact that we spend the first 3 episodes completely separate from the Imperials is brilliant. We get to see Karn and Mosk and the kinds of people that want to be stormtroopers. They view themselves as the first line of defense for the Empire, and then they completely drop the ball. So then we escalate to the Imperials moving in to take control. On Aldhani, we're allowed to see TIE fighters prowling the countryside. Cassian and Devel's crew all cower before them. The pilots buzz the ground just because they want to scare some farmers. Then we start seeing stormtroopers on Ferrix, then death troopers. The escalation was fantastic and made me feel that growing oppression. It made me fear the white armor again. And then in the season finale, we do see stormtroopers that are terrifying. The next time someone makes a joke about their ability to aim, I'm gonna think back to the massacre on Ferrix, watching stormtroopers hit their marks, sending bodies flying. All that stuff is great, but what I think Andor's writers really nailed is the personal side of the Empire's villainy. The Death Star is front and center in A New Hope. It is the end road for the Empire. If you're gonna rule through fear, the ultimate symbol of that is the ability to quickly and casually remove any resistance. Despite showing the deaths of millions of innocent people, A New Hope is rated PG, because the destruction of Alderaan is impersonal. It's the kind of terror that's difficult to fully comprehend. As a 7 or 8-year-old, I knew it was terrible, but I didn't fully grasp it. I mostly understood the pain through Leia. Andor takes us a step back and shows us all the kinds of people who think a Death Star would be a good idea, and in the absence of a Death Star, we see how they treat others around them. I love that all those people are treated as complex. They're not all old, wrinkly, obviously evil space wizards shooting lightning out of their fingertips. They're people you can find yourself rooting for at times. Seeing Dedra Meero working against her peers and superiors, watching her punch up or at least on her own level against other Imperials in the ISB, yeah, I was rooting for her to put Blevin in his place. But then the second she goes to Ferrix, we are reminded that she is not someone to root for. She will punch down, she will torture our heroes, and do it with a terrifying smile on her face. Andor made the Empire's evil terrifying on a personal level, and that is important. People can have a difficult time quantifying and understanding tragedy and oppression when it's happening in another country across the world, or when it's affecting a group they have no connection with. But the closer someone gets to seeing the personal effects of that oppression, even if they're not experiencing it themselves, the harder it is to look away, the more real it becomes. It's sad, and it shouldn't be that way, but knowing one of your friends is being hurt can instantly change your worldview on something. So the fact that Andor took the time to allow the audience to experience the world of Ferrix was important. We got to know several characters around the city. Marva, Bix, Brasso, B2EMO, Nurchi, Zan, Pegla, the Pax, and more. We got to see what life was like for them, so that when the Empire moved in, we also got to see how everything changed, how the Empire doesn't view any of them as people the way we got to. It's horrifying on a personal level that we can wrap our heads around. We can't really comprehend the destruction of an entire planet full of people, but we can comprehend the torture of Bix, even when it's rooted in space fantasy. And that's just on Ferrix. We get to see the subjugation of the Aldani culture, we get to see the use of slave labor in the prison system, and if you haven't seen the documentary 13, you can watch it on Netflix, and it's all about the use of labor in prisons in the real world. Everything surrounding the Empire in Andor feels so rooted in reality. It makes us take a look at what fascism and oppression look like in a galaxy far, far away, but also where we live, and yeah, that's scary. However, while Andor did a great job of making the Empire maybe scarier and more grounded than it's ever been, the writers did a great job of also showing how fragile it really is. They didn't just say, hey, let's make the TIE fighters badass and let's make sure the stormtroopers can shoot worth a damn. They did that, but they also made sure the audience knew that in spite of all that, they can be beaten. The excerpt from Nimic's manifesto hits the nail on the head. The Empire thinks it can control anything and everything through brute force, but that is an unnatural state. To put it in Star Wars terms, their approach knocks ecosystems and cultures and worlds out of balance. Authority is brittle and oppression is the mask of fear. It didn't take much from the people of Ferrix to show the Empire that the control they thought they had was an illusion to be overcome. And once the Imperials see their power was all a lie, it's chaos. They panic, and power doesn't panic. It's telling that the season finale is like a bigger version of the climax of the first arc. Cyril and the other corpos head there after being warned that the citizens have their own way of doing things. He shrugs off the need for any personal knowledge or experience about the planet, and it completely bites him in the ass. It all falls apart, and his life is left in shambles. The Empire sees the lack of order and control, and their response is the only response they know: more strength. Let's do the same thing, but more extreme. Their oppression builds and builds until, again, the tenuous control they have is lost because they never took the time to learn about the planet and their people. All of their unique cultural traditions are seen as annoyances, and if they paid attention to them, the outcome may have been different. But again, on Ferrix, on the exact same road, conflict literally explodes, and all control is lost. I have to imagine the Imperial response will, again, be the same general idea, but bigger. It's the exact same road that leads to the Death Star. Okay, people are becoming less afraid of our TIE fighters and our stormtrooper occupations and Star Destroyers, so what do? More fear, bigger fear. And of course we know that doesn't work either. The destruction of Alderaan and the Death Star's destruction leads to more and more systems joining the rebellion, and what does the Empire do? They build another bigger, stronger Death Star. It's the same thing over and over because the Empire only defines strength by their power to dominate. But true strength comes from community. Dedra shrugs off Marva as any kind of threat, calling her old and sick and weak. She doesn't understand that her position on Ferrix and the love that her neighbors have for her could ever be a threat. Not until she is shoved into the dirt, left to scramble for her life. So yes, Andor made the Empire scarier and more personal, but it also revealed how flawed it is in one of the most compelling and grounded ways I can recall. I love it. But that's all I have to say about the Empire for now. Let me know what you thought of their depiction in Andor in the comments. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel for all our Andor coverage, follow us on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram, and consider checking out our Patreon page for our video reactions and audio commentaries for every episode. And you can check out this playlist for all of our existing Andor content. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.